Triple T. You're saying this year's focus will be on teachers, textbooks, and time. One politician is very unhappy. The leader of the Democratic Alliance said yesterday that you actually stole her idea.
Well, I don't know where was she installing the ideas, where they were stoleable. But the reality is that we are talking about what we've been talking all the time. We are saying education is crucial for the nation. No nation that does not pay attention to education can succeed. It's impossible. So we have made the right choice in terms of making education as the apex of our priorities. We went further to divide the department, which was very huge, and the tendency at the time was that the concentration was more on the higher level rather than the basic, and therefore created a possibility that we pay sufficient attention to both. I think we are. As I said, we have got a 10-point plan at the level of basic education, and I think we are doing the right things. And I think our approach to this question has actually made the country to move with the flow. That is why the matric results began to be better, and the enthusiasm from the students. I think after a long time, it's for the first time that even higher education is in difficulties because of the numbers that are coming. That is important that we deal with that. I think education is crucial, and we are therefore saying, if we are to succeed, we've got to deal with education at the formative stage, at the foundation. And that's why we're saying the teachers, therefore, become important. One of the teachers, I suspected, I didn't ask, because one lady that I walked to in some house in Durban said to me, you have invited us to talk, I didn't write, but can you look after the teachers? Because the teachers are important to create an environment so that teaching is indeed effective. That's what we're talking about. So we say the teachers must do their job. Historically, teachers in education were a pivotal point, very vital. Whatever else you do, teachers were important. So we're saying T number one, the teachers. And we're saying the textbooks must reach the children at the right time, and each child must have a textbook, because it's crucial for the teaching to continue. They must have the material in their hands. And T number three, time. Time is crucial. That quality time that is given at school must be used, must be maximized. That's what we're talking about. I don't know other parties of the T's, what are they talking about? But I'm talking about the teacher must be at school on time, teaching enough hours, the hours that are stipulated by the law, and that the child must have the book, and that therefore the time is crucial. So we are saying, whatever we do, if we fail that, there are many other things that need to be looked at. How do you prepare the kids in terms of what kind of subjects do they take to prepare themselves for the higher level, so that you don't get children studying anything up to a point when they get to university, they actually don't know what they're coming to do. They're just going to take what they're given. In other words, we must begin to orientate, guide, help to check whether the kids will be good in that kind of field or in that kind of field. So there's a lot that we need to do to ensure that education is streamlined to a point that we are able to succeed.
You said something along similar lines in the 2010 State of the Nation address. You made a very bold statement, and in the same year we had one of the biggest strikes that this country has ever seen, certainly by teachers. Do you think that teachers listened or heeded your call last year, and how confident are you that they will listen to you now?
I think teachers did listen, no doubt about it. I interact with the teachers, I interact with the unions. I think the issue that caused a strike was a different issue. It was the issue of salaries. It's an issue that I think between government, public sector unions, as well as government, they must discuss very carefully. I would want to believe that the last year's strike must have been a lesson. How do we go forward? I'm sure things were taken to some very extreme at that time. I hope it would not get to that level which it got to last time. But critical to this is the understanding, the commitment by everybody. Because not a single one said education was not important. Everybody was saying, even the workers, precisely because we say education is important, create the necessary condition for the teachers. I think we needed to have a kind of an agreement. How then do we deal with that issue? Because we all agreed that it is important. And I must say, to me, the fact that when we had the biggest strike, but the results have actually improved, indicate the commitment that the teachers have, the community has, everybody else have. Because you could not. Everybody was saying it's going to be bad. I think the teachers, when they came back, they give it all. They even, I think, worked extra hours. That is what we need about education as a challenge for the nation.
Now, of course, that has given rise to another problem which you alluded to earlier, that of universities not being able to, institutions of higher learning not being able to absorb the numbers of students who wants to study. How are we going to deal with that one?
Well, that's a matter, I've actually raised it with the minister. That's a matter I've got to deal with, because I don't think it is accurate to say, look, we now have no space. You can't deny children education. We need to be innovative. We need to say, what do we do? Under the circumstances. If it means hiring other buildings that necessarily could be found so that the people are at school. It also means the challenge of the lecturers. Do we have sufficient lecturers? That's, I think, what, to me, this particular wave began to expose. It means we needed to understand that we needed to increase the volume of the lecturers as well as the space. You know that we have been talking, for an example, about 2 provinces that have got no universities. Of course, we've taken a decision to establish the universities. But that in itself indicates the problem. Because we should have sufficient space to take our citizens. We should plan. We know the growth of our population. We should be knowing, therefore, what is the demand insofar as the space for tertiary institutions and therefore the space for people to come in. That should be part of our automatic planning. I think that's what we're going to be looking at as we move forward.
Let's move quickly, Mr. President, to the issue of social welfare. You made a point yesterday that we are a developmental and not a welfare state. Yes. Now, you then went on to say we now need to link what we're giving people who are in underprivileged conditions to economic activity. Now, can you just expand on that, on what you mean exactly by the kinds of economic activities that people can engage in? In other words, people who are recipients of government assistance programs can actually engage in economic activity.
Well, firstly, the point that we are a developmental state, we are not a welfare state, is an important point for the country to bear in mind. In other words, whilst we have expanded the issue of the age, for an example, age limit in terms of the grants, etc., which is important because we are dealing with the crisis of poverty that we've got to deal with. But it cannot be a permanent feature. As a country, we've got to plan, what do we do to reduce those numbers? One of the critical points is how we are dealing with education, for an example, of the poor kids. The fact that we are introducing free education is one way of tackling that issue, so that these kids who would otherwise would have not had an opportunity to go to school will therefore remain as kids that could not be productive in any other way, are going to be empowered and therefore reduce the numbers from those who would otherwise just be sitting. That's one area with regard to education. But we are also saying, whatever we are doing, what can we do to create activities to those who are poor so that they begin to do something? In other words, to focus to those poor ones. In other words, to say, what can they do else that could generate some income that they could live on their own? To assist them to do so. Because it is better to assist that person with something to stand on her own or his own, rather than to keep on giving that person forever. That's what we are looking at. I've not sat down to detail exactly what will happen, because the situations are different. In some areas, in the rural areas, you may have different things to do to empower the community to be able to do something. What I'm looking at is to reach a point where only the aged and the disabled would actually be deserving to receive this permanently. But those who have the bodies, able bodies to work, they must do so. There is a particular program I've started of the community program in my own village. The point I've made was that in no way we can fail to be imaginative. And with that program is going on. And I said, this business of saying people are in the rural areas unskilled, they've got no skills at all. I said they've got skills to look after cattle. So why don't we introduce dairy farming so that we bring cattle for them, which is a capital kind of demand, so that they are able to look after cattle. Well, that's a skill they have. They are able to milk, get the milk, put it in the market, so that they are able to earn something. I believe there are many other things we can do if they are succeeding to do so. And I've said so. You could even begin to build a situation where they look after cattle, meat cattle, so that they could supply abattoirs. So there are many things we can do, I believe it, even to the poorest of the poor, to empower them so that they are economically active.
Mr. President, we're going to take the last commercial break. And when we come back, we look at South Africa's place in the world. So don't go away.